We started talking last week about the halacha, which is quoted in Shulchan Aruch, about right before you travel, Moti Shabbos before you travel, to say part of Parshas Vayishlach. So I had an opportunity to look up the source of this, and it's actually a Be'er Hativ and Hilchos Havdalah. The Be'er Hativ and Hilchos Havdalah, it's Reis Sadi Tes, 299, Sivkot Yudal, 14. So he says there that you shouldn't say psukim. He brings from the Arizal not to say psukim unless you're about to travel, right? Then you should say Parshas Vayishlach. I found also from the B'tzel Chachma, we mentioned the Sefer Halak B'Amitecha. He goes into this. It's in B'tzel Chachma Chelik Dalid Simon Mem Dalid. He brings there from the Siddur Hayavitz, which is Rabbi Yaakov Emden in the Zmiros of Moti Shabbos. He includes the psukim in Parshas Vayishlach. Say them before you travel. And it's an interesting thing. I was thinking as we read the Parsha this week, like what is in Yiddish to say, what's Tutzach Dorn? What's going on here that we're supposed to read Parshas Vayishlach before we travel? And I saw they bring from the Mayam Luez in Parshas Vayishlach that the school is to find favor in people's eyes. That Yaakov was in not such good shape before he met up with Esav. It looked like he was basically finished because Esav wanted to kill him. And through this, what's going on in the Parsha, so Yaakov is Zeicha to come out on top. And this is a lesson for all generations how we should act. And I believe we could suggest as follows. And I'm going to ask a few questions to get things started. The Rashi says twice in Perek Lamed Beis and Lamed Gimel that the fight between the Malach of uh, Esav, which was the Malach Yaakov fought, the angel that Yaakov fought, was the angel of Yaakov and the angel of Esav. They were fighting. The topic, the issue under dispute was the brachas that Yaakov had received. That, as Rashi says, that he wanted Esav to admit that the brachas really belonged to him. And there's a few questions over here, though, that you could ask. Yaakov is fighting with the Malach, and he asks for a bracha, which Rashi says is the bracha to admit that the brachas really belong to him. And what does the Malach say back? He tells him, "Your name is Yisrael," and he gives him a soliloquy over here, this wonderful new name that Yaakov has, which has nothing seemingly to do with the question that Yaakov asked. Yaakov wanted a bracha, and he tells him his name. So how does Yaakov respond? So Yaakov says, "So what's your name?" Which again, you want the brachas. Why are you asking his name? And then the Malach responds back, "Why are you asking me my name?" And then he gives him the bracha. So the whole back and forth here is perplexing at best, because Yaakov wants the brachas, and the Malach talks about the name. So then Yaakov talks about the name, and the Malach gives the brachas. Like, what's going on here? So I think we could suggest as follows, and perhaps we can understand based on this why it is important before one travels to learn this parsha well. There's a lot of descendants of Esav out there. He has many, many students out there, many Enik we call them, many descendants. And Esav's main attribute is sheker, is falsehood. Rashi says at the end of Parshas told us that Esav holds his hands out and shows how his hooves are split, that he's really a kosher animal, when really he is like Chazer, he's straight, according to all opinions, at least for now. Apparently, Rav Tzadok HaKohen says that when Mashiach comes, the Chazer will become kosher. But meanwhile, you can't have Chazer unless you buy those OU bacon bits, which is only imitation anyway, or you eat a shibuta, which tastes like a Chazer, but you can't eat Chazer. And Esav's main attribute is sheker, and at any opportunity he can, he will try to deceive us. Now, Yaakov asked for an admittance about the brachas. This involves two things. Number one, Esav say that Yaakov deserves it, but number two, he has to say, I don't deserve it. Right? In order to remove any speck of taina, of claim against Yaakov, saying the brachas, Two elements are necessary. Number one, Yaakov deserves it, and number two, Esav doesn't deserve it. So this is actually what happened over here. That when the Malach was asked for the bracha, that the brachas belong to Yaakov, he said, "You're Yisrael." He reveals what comes out later in the Pasha. Your name has been changed to Yisrael. This means you're a great person. You're yasher. You're straight. You really deserve it. But he didn't say that he doesn't deserve it. Yeah, Asa was trying to pull a fast one on Yaakov. He was trying to present this very dramatic picture about how great Yaakov is, but he wasn't really admitting that he doesn't deserve the brachas. So therefore, there's still my brachas. Just because you don't deserve it doesn't mean I don't deserve it. This is what Esav is saying. Afterwards, Yaakov brilliantly comes back and says, "So Esav, so what's your name?" And Esav now is stuck. Yeah, he's stuck because Esav doesn't have a name. Esav's name is finished. It's gone. It's all over. It's done. I have nothing left to do. Right? That's where the one Esav. And Esav is just in this world. He's done as far as he's concerned. All he needs to do is enjoy life and take it easy. Occasionally, involving himself in a few superficial spiritual endeavors, just so he can feel good about himself. And so Asa says, "Why are you asking me my name?" Which means I don't have a name. Basically, was conceding to the fact that he doesn't deserve it. Right? And this was, I believe, the back and forth between Yaakov and Asa. Asa saying, not only do you deserve it, but also being forced to admit that you don't deserve it. And there was great wisdom on Yaakov's part. Great wisdom on Yaakov's part. So we see a number of things in this parsha. Number one, when you're traveling, right, be careful. You'll meet up with Esav's Talmidim, students, and you might try to deceive you with very grandiose and very dramatic portrayals. Number one. Number two, use wisdom. Don't let yourself be deceived. You have to use great, great wisdom in order to overcome Esav, right, and his descendants. Right? And in doing so, you'll be successful. You need to know. You need to know. And I saw the Miamle says it's about finding favor in people's eyes. In order to do that, you have to be very, very humble. And sometimes it involves sending great gifts, and sometimes it involves um, uh, using great, great wisdom. Whatever it might be, just be really careful when you're dealing with Esav and his descendants to know how to deal with them. Because in truth, it's supposed to be a partnership, right? And we find that by Antoninos and Rebbe that they had a partnership, and it was a very, very successful partnership. This is really the way it was meant to be. This is the way that Yitzhak Avinu wanted it, and if you want it to happen, it's not easy, but you have to follow rules. Well, and rule number one is that Esav is very weak in the attribute of sheker, of falsehood. So you have to really understand that. And number two, you have to use great wisdom in dealing with Esav because it's not a simple matter. He really has quite a brilliant agenda up his sleeves, and if you're not careful, he will trick you and deceive you. So this is something we should keep in mind if we need to travel. And don't forget Motzi Shabbos. I saw it says within 4 hours of Havdalah. Try to say this parsha. It says you should do it before Malav Malka if possible. And internalize it. Don't just say the words, but internalize it. And it will give you great help and assistance in your travels abroad. Hashem should give us all safe travels, and we should all be successful in our endeavors with Esav and be successful in everything we do. Amen. Kain. Ta. Ratzon.